Now, students, if you observe this financial analysis of Flatthall, now the first thing is the growth. That is, if you have taken the financial statements, what I have done is I have just taken the current year revenue, that is 2023 revenue, comparing with the 2022 revenue, the change I have put it into a percentage, and that is only the growth. That is, even in the case of Flatthall, they have a 15.6% increase in revenue. Compared with the duets, it's only 19.6% revenue. Now, we have to do this analysis more like a finance manager in this industry and the sector. So now, if you observe our company, that is, if you see our company has comparatively lower growth compared with duets. One reason can be, students, if you observe, we are the market leader. In simple language, we would have come to the optimum level of our organizational growth. Because if you want to increase the revenue, you have to increase the number of PBSA. Because if you observe, every PBSA has a limited number of capacity. Now, if you observe, the biggest challenge in our industry is if the occupancy is full, we can't increase our revenue. So if you see, that is the biggest challenge in investment property. So how can you increase the revenue? By making sure you have new buildings. That is one option. Or the other thing that you can increase the revenue is increase the price. But if you increase the price, there will be a substitution effect where they will go to a private residence, which is cheaper also. So we have to be very, very careful with that aspect. So I believe that is very clear for you all. So students, now if you observe duets, now if you compare our competitor duet, if you observe, they may have an ability to grow also. That is one more factor to be considered. And the industry point of view also, if you observe, the PBSA has the lowest number of revenue share. The reason behind that is it is very expensive, one factor to be considered. So students, let's just check the asset base. Now, if you observe here, the intangible asset, there are no changes. Intangible assets can be the property deeds, all those things can be the intangible asset. But if you see the property, plant and equipment, there is a growth of 8.97. And students, one weakness of our financial statements, if you observe, one of the main weaknesses, do we have a revaluation reserve? So that is one question that I have to ask here. Do we have a revaluation reserve? Students, can I get a confirmation in the chat box if you are okay with that? There is no revaluation reserve because students, if you observe, property values can always go up and go down. Correct, no students? So there is no revaluation reserve. And students, they have just mentioned property, plant and equipment. So in that case, if there is no revaluation reserve and property, plant and equipment, there needs to be a reclassification of this to investment property. Because students, IAS 40 effectively says investment property is any property that is held for rental income and capital appreciation. And if you see property, plant and equipment may be a wrong classification. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are okay with that at the moment? I believe that is fine. So students, let's see our competitor also for an idea. So even if you see our competitor, there is again an increase in his properties. And another factor is availability of private residence. That is one thing you have to keep in mind, because when the private residents are higher, there is long chances that the company will have an issue where people go into the private residence also. So students, let's start analyzing this. The revenue of Flatthall. The revenue of whom, students? Flatthall is growing but lower compared with duets, compared with duets. Reasoning, because students, in CIMA examination, your reasoning is very important. The reasons can be the price may be higher. And also, there may be availability of substitutes. Like private residence or private rentals comma, hall of residence, and also there can be emergence of other accommodations such as grade car. Can you remember, students, grade car? That is, you can stay in a car as well. This can be reasons why there is a fall in the revenue. Sorry, compared with fall in the revenue compared with duals. And also, the university and college ranking matters as well. Therefore, this is also a major factor to be considered. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are getting the clarity behind this, students? Are you clear with this? Are you clear with this? Mr. Srini, any other things that you like to add on? Are you fine with this? Is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Thank you. Students, I just need to write a new heading here so that we will not be missing any other important thing. I'll write down here financial statements errors. This is one thing I have to note down because it's not errors. I can say another thing is like an auditor, I can say emphasis on matters because I am little concerned of this. I'm thinking like an auditor, emphasis on matters. Now, students, if you observe the first bullet point, I can effectively write down is I can say PBSA in simple language, purpose-built student accommodation. Are held for rental income and capital appreciation. Therefore, the biggest challenge in this case can be why there is no investment property in the financial statements. And also, they have mentioned property, plant, and equipment only. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? That is a bigger challenge. I'll write down here IAS 40 versus IAS 16. And within brackets, I'll just mention revise because that is one factor to be considered. There is also no revaluation reserve. Since land is subjected to revaluation. Land is subjected to revaluation. Let's forget about building. Land is always subjected to revaluation. Just keep that in mind, students. I'll write down here 30 years establishment. So the organization is effectively operating for 30 years from now onwards. So effectively, there needs to be some challenges associated with these financial statements. Excellent. Now, students, cost of revenue, if you observe, students, 34.27, 33.38, if you observe in this case, I'll write down here, students, the major cost can be splitted into infrastructure and human resource. Infrastructure and what, students? Human resource. Are you clear with that? Now, if you observe infrastructure, students, infrastructure, if you observe, I can say asset maintenance. Now, example of an asset maintenance can be like lift maintenance. Students, is it important to maintain the lift? Of course, lift maintenance. Laundry maintenance, laundry room maintenance, correct, no, students, laundry room maintenance. and flow care, because flow care is important, flow care, and other maintenance and other maintenance. Correct, no students? Other maintenance, because that is the major cost directly involved in the cost of revenue. And also human resource students, I'll just be very transparent here. Human resource effectively students in the form of concierges, the caretakers, right? Concierges is one factor to be considered. And then students, we have the cleaners who are also there. And then students, we have other staffs also. So effectively students, these are the cost of revenue. And I can say industry-based charges. I think that's what it is, almost the same. Industry-based charges. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? So I think it is going tally with the rates, what is going with our competitor also. Because students, these staffs are unskilled labor. The reason is the price remains the same. Like if you are working in Burger King or if you are working in McDonald's, still the rates is going to be the same because both are having the identical service you are going to give to the people. So can I get a Y in the chat box, students, if you are clear with this cost of revenue factor? Can I get a Y in the chat box if you are fine with this cost of revenue? The growth goes with the market perspective. Thank you. Thank you. And if you observe the gross profit, students, again, you see it goes in line with the increment in the revenue only. So I can just say, since the revenue is more stagnant for Flatthall, we can assume there is a less growth compared with Duet. So that is one factor to be considered compared with Duet. Now, students, here comes the challenge. Now, let's quickly check our financial statements. You see, they don't have administration cost. Students, can I write down here? Administration cost is missing. Administration cost is not there. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? Because students, if you see the accounting, the finance, all this falls into the administration cost, but it is not there. That means administration has been included in operations. Can I get a Y in the chat box? Can I get a Y in the chat box if you understood that? This is the presumption that we have to make if they have not given additional notes. I believe everyone is very, very clear with that perspective. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So students, now the next challenge I have is, let's quickly go up here. Here you see the things. One is, you see here students, portfolio, customer service, operations, IT, finance. Now, students coming here, you can observe the operational cost is going down. Students, why do you think there is a fall in the operational cost? What is your perspective? Now, you see our competitor, their operational cost is going up. But if you see our operational cost is going down. So the main reason I can effectively say why our operational cost is going down is maybe automations, because we are aware that most of the things are automated. For instance, students, can you remember, the students will get a card. A card is given for the students where they can use it as their key and they have to return that card back. So what happens is the operational cost is step by step reducing due to the automation function also. That is one more thing. And also economies of scale. They would have also gone through the economies of scale. Excellent. The synergy factors, correct. So economies of scale is also one more factor to be considered in this perspective why the operational cost is effectively going down. And also students, if you observe, another factor is our building structure. Students, do you observe our building structure? Can I get a Y in the chat box if you can see our floor plan? Students, can I get a confirmation from you if you can see the floor plan here? Can I get a confirmation, students? Can you get the floor plan here? Students, do you see our floor plan is linear? Lean management. Do you observe, students, our floor plan is linear? That is, students, you see a basic example I can generally guide is lift. You're coming in the lift. Flat number 6. Do you see? It's very linear, easy to clean. Do you observe here, students? Do you see here? Easy to clean, easy to clean. You come, the entrance, go. You come, the entrance, go. You come, the entrance, go. Do you see here? The floor plans are very much linear. Can I get a Y in the chat box if you are able to observe the floor plan, students? Because this is one strategic factor you have to consider, the engineering factors, because they have designed the floor plan which is very much suited for students arena, because it is very easy for cleaning, it is very easy for monitoring, it is very easy for doing everything, students. I can say this is one critical success factor also. So can I write that down so that it will be easier? The floor plan is one of the critical success factor. One of the critical, what, students? Success factor for the company. Do you agree with that point of view? The floor plan is one of the critical factor, success factor for the company. Reason, it is a lean management factor. Lean management factor where the cleaning process is easier. Cleaning process is what, students? Cleaning process is easier for the staffs. Easier for the staffs. And also, even for the students, it is very convenient. It is very convenient considering other factors like common areas and lift. And lift, students will do a small analysis of the lift. They have not given. For a flow, how many lifts are there? 1, 2, 1, 2. So students, do you observe here? There are 4 lifts there in total. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students? 4 lift is there. 4 lift is there in total. And I feel that's fine, students. I feel that's fine. Now, if you see you're coming in this lift, you can go here. You can coming in this lift, you can go here. I think that's a very good arrangement I have to observe. So I can generally say also, they would have automated most of the clerical works as well, like paper works. And therefore, the operational costs are reducing as well. And this can be a strategic advantage as well to compete with the market, Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with that? Because the floor plan plays a very, very critical role here. If you have stayed in a 5-star hotel, you would have observed in every 5-star hotel, they have a floor plan mentioned, right? So that floor plan is a strategic advantage because it effectively saves a lot of cost also. So can I get a double Y in the chat box, students, if that is fine? And operating profit, students, I can just say, due to the floor plan, and efficient operation management, I can effectively say that Flatthall have excelled well in the business process. Correct, no, students? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you got that idea clearly? Compared with Duet. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now finance cost. Now, students, finance cost, if you observe, let's little check our loan. Now, see, students, a loan has increased by 27.2%. Interest is also increasing. Do you see a direct correlation? Here you see loan is increasing by 36. This is also increasing. So do you observe, students, when you borrow, interest increases? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? What I will do, I'll just highlight this so that you will understand why there is a change. Do you get that point? These two are correlated, students. direct observation, the finance cost has increased direct proportionate to the borrowing of loan, which can be observed. There can be situations that the interest rates are cheaper, or special subsidies for student resident business. Maybe that. So profit before tax, if you observe students, it's declining for Duet. You can see there's a growth is declining, not the profit before tax. They're making a profit, but this profit is lower compared to the last year. And for us, it's going very, very well. So that is one ideation here. So the ideation here is where we have structured ourselves is the operational expenses. This is where we have structured ourselves. So I'll put a green color here. So exam focus, can I write down, students, the areas that you have to focus on? Exam focus, ABM. ABM means, students, activity-based management. I will do theory class on that. Activity-based management. And then students, one more thing is ABC, that is activity-based costing. They won't ask you to do calculation, students. You have to do analysis only. And then students, CGMA, cost transformation. CGMA, what, students? Cost transformation model. So these are the factors that you have to keep in mind, because operational efficiency has been better from our end. So just keep those topics in your mind. Now, students, profit before tax, I can say Flatthall is effectively performing well due to strategic planning and past experiences as well. And the next thing, students, just to keep yourself even well occupied, taxation. Tax increases in proportionate to profit increase, because you see 19.47 increase, so there is almost similar. And then students, profit for the year, I'll just write down the same reasons of the above. So intangible asset, it is 0. Generally, intangible assets can be license. Students, license to operate PBSA. License to operate what, students? PBSA. Students, do you need to have a license to operate PBSA? Of course, because it's only student residential areas. And also other factors like the plan, like the floor plan. Students, sometimes we can make sure the floor plan is patented. That can be also done to prevent competitors copying our floor plan. So that is one thing to be considered. It can be patented as well. 30 years of business, the biggest challenge is that goodwill. 30 years of business, we can't capitalize goodwill based on that. You need to have acquisition. So goodwill is not mentioned, because intangible asset and goodwill, there is a distinction, because goodwill is the difference between the net assets and the fair value. Intangible assets, anything that can be acquired. So I'll just write down here the point of view. Thank you. There is no goodwill mentioned. There is no goodwill mentioned in the financial statement. So exam focus, I'll write down here, exam focus. Acquisition can happen. An acquisition can happen. And goodwill needs to be calculated. Done. Okay. Property, plant, and equipment. There can be some new investment in buildings or internal assets such as laundry and lift. And the last one is loan. If you observe students, this has increased for the investment purposes, maybe investment purpose. Okay, so this is the ideation. So we have to understand the factors here. That is, revenue is little going down because cash cow. We are in a very stable position. That is the ideation. So students, any questions you have with the growth analysis? The growth analysis is successfully done. Any questions you have with the growth analysis? Can we go to the financial analysis of ratios? Financial analysis of ratios. Can I get a Y in the chat box, students? If you are fine with the growth analysis, what we have done at the moment. Can we go to the financial analysis, please? Can I get a confirmation? Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Srini. So going into the financial analysis, the first thing is I have colored in a light green color, which is the profitability ratios. This is the gearing and the liquidity ratios. These are the liquidity ratios and these are working capital ratios. Okay, now students, step by step, we can work on this so that it will be easier for you all. So the gross profit margin, students, if you see 83, 82, 84, 86, that is the industry related gross profit margin and it is very high. The reason is, students, we are getting rental income and our income of rent is very expensive for these small areas and occupancy rates are also very high. So I'll write down here, the charges are more same based on the industry factors, 80 plus percent, I'll write on 80 plus, in the industry it is 80 plus, let's just say 80 plus as gross profit margin indicates it's premium. It is a premium sector. Students, do you agree with me? Because 80% gross profit margin is a premium sector. Correct, no, students? Very, very clear. The main reasons can be convenience and location advantage. Convenience and location advantage, and single room. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are okay with this gross profit margin analysis? Because it's again a niche factor. So I'll write down here, students, challenges of substitute, like private rental, and students, all of residence, or any other factors, or any new disruptions, like mobile app, like what, students? Like mobile apps can come. So we have to be very clear, because 80% margin, someone comes with something new, it will directly affect our business. Correct, no, students? Can I get a Y in the chat box if you are fine with that? Because if you see, most of the bigger companies who had a lot of margins effectively collapsed because of a disruption. Someone came in the middle and designed something which is cheaper and affordable as well. So coming to the operational profit margin, students, again, it is very higher. And I can say, I can just combine this together, because operational profit margin looks the same. Because I told you, no, students, if you observe this very, very clearly, you can clearly understand it looks the same. I believe everyone is very, very clear, because these two almost looking the same, right? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you are okay with these two categories? Because this is very, 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 very important and essential, because these two have been dominated and these two are almost the industry related rates. And students, here comes the challenge, the profit for the year margin. Here I can write down saying Flatthall is effectively higher. Maybe due to customer segments. students, if you observe now, certain university children are they are premium. For instance, Flatthall can have high profile students, and also their strategic planning, I can effectively say strategic planning can be flow plan. What plan? Flow plan. So can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you are clear with this? Because this is the differentiating factor where this company is doing very, very well. And students, locations where there is less private rental. Now, if the locations have less private rental, also you have an advantage, because anyway, people will come to your premises. Can I get a double Y in the chat box, students? Because 40%, I can effectively say it is something to be considered, right? 40%, that means you are excelling your other players also. And another thing, students, I can effectively say good quality, excellent. So can I just write down here other facilities? Other facilities like customer support. Because students, can you remember our customer support is 24 hours to 48 hours, they will solve it. Correct, no, students? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, right? It's a wonderful point. Thank you, Sridevi. Now you see the ROC he has been mentioned. The ROC looks the same, so I'll write down here. ROC is almost industry based, and asset turnover industry based, most industry based, and asset turnover industry based, asset turnover industry based. No, students, I believe that is also very clear. You have to think here like a shareholder, students, an investor. You think like an investor. These guys have dominated using better policies also. And can I say one more thing? Safety and internal control, students, does that plays a critical role for this business? Because do you need to have safety, students? Can I say one more factor that is indirectly supporting the company to be very much premium? Can that be safety also? Now you see certain apartments are extremely premium. One reason is safety, students. Easily you can go inside. You have to get permissions every time. Now here you have the gearing ratios. I think it is managed properly. So I'll write down here. The gearing ratio is managed well. In exams, please remember to relate to questions on financing options, and weighted average cost of capital, because there will be chances you will be getting questions for sure on financing options and weighted average cost of capital. So it is very, 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 very important. Can I get a double Y in the chat box, students, if you are fine with this? Can I get a double Y in the chat box if you are fine with this? Thank you. Thank you very much, students. Thanks, Mr. Srini. And interest cover also, students, I can say the company has the stability. To pay interest on time. Now, students, in an exam question, when it comes, now, if you see a technical student will always say, go with equity. But if you are seeing as a consultant and you see this business is a low risk business. Why I am saying is occupancy level is always full, because inelastic demand, anyway, crowd will come for the university, you will have market also. The current and the quick ratio you can compare for this industry. Now, if you observe the ideal rate, now I'll just write down here a note so that it is very clear for you all. Ideal rate for current ratio. Ideal rate is, students, technical 2:1. Correct, no, students? And quick ratio, what is the ideal rate, students? 1:1. Agree? But if you observe in this situation, it is not the same. Do you observe that, students? It doesn't look the same. It's not 2:1, it's not 1:1. I can say the main reason is rental deposit. Is what deposit, students? Rental deposit. Students, can you remember there is a rental deposit factor in our case study? That means when the students are joining your hostel, they have to pay a rental deposit. Can I get a double Y in the chat box? Can I get a double Y? It's a current liability, students. It's a current liability. Now, if you observe, if you have worked in corporate, you'll understand most of the technical jargons are just a direction orientation only. But in the organization point of view, it may change. So I'll write down here. Therefore, liquidity ratios doesn't apply for this sector. Doesn't apply for this sector for interpretation. For interpretation, it will always give a false identity. Now, example, students, a bank. If you see a bank, their current ratio and quick ratio will be always very low. The reason is the investments in the banks are current, no? If you see, students, liabilities, right? And can a company use this amount for working capital? I'll come to that. So students, coming into this point, now for working capital management, more than that, they can keep that in a fixed deposit, a short-term money market deposit also. They can invest that money where they can take the money anytime. That option is there. Now, in inventory days, if you see, students, we don't have any storage, very basic storage like bedsheet, all those things. It's only 6 days, and the receivable days, within 20 days, you can collect the money easily. And then, students, the payable days. Now, you see here, this deposit is the payable days. 1 year. Do you observe here, students? It's almost more than a year. Can I get a Y in the chat box, students? This payable days, because people rarely leave the organization. If they come, they will only leave after 1 year. The 2 semesters only they will leave. Are you understanding that perspective, students? So in that case, we can effectively identify that we have excess cash. Like Mr. Srini is saying, we have excess cash. Because if you see here, we don't have cash shortage. We have cash surplus. We have cash surplus. So what can we do? We can make sure repairing, because that is first priority. Because whatever happens, students, these properties, the money they pay, you must initially cover up for repairing purposes, for any damages they have caused. Then any additional things what you have, you can reinvest that on a money market investment. Never go for a fixed investment, because anytime the student is asking back the money, you may not have money to pay. Money market investment, a little less interest, but still you can take the money back on time, anytime. And the dividend payout is very much minimalistic, 36 and 39. Looks good. So can I just write down here? I'll just write down here. Inventory days and receivable days are very low. Since this industry is low risk, and effectively, this will ensure the company to have a better management of working capital. And here I'll write down, this is the deposit paid by the students. And we can understand that the student is having a satisfaction since the payables are after 2 semesters. And I can say effectively, there is a very high cash flow which needs to be prioritized for damages cost by the students. Repair and maintenance. Then we can effectively say excess cash can be invested in money market account, where the interest may be low, but cash can be withdrawn anytime. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are understanding the priority factors here? And finally, I'll write down here, dividend payout looks fine. But compared to interest expensive, you have to remember this, because interest may be cheaper. Correct, no, students? Interest may be cheaper. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? Because we can do a small calculation. It's not a correct answer you may get. Interest may vary. 2,800 is the loan, students. 2,800 is the loan. And if you observe, the interest we paid for this year is 224. So students, I'll just write in 224 divided by 2,800, multiply that by 100. I think it is effectively coming somewhere around 7%. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students? So this is just a benchmark calculation. This is just a benchmark calculation. But are you comfortable with this, students? So effectively, the conclusion of our analysis today is business is not challenging, smooth running business, but we have to make sure other factors. Students, natural disaster is a big challenge, because students, like a flood, an earthquake, something happens, the entire building will get disrupted. Correct, no, students? That is one more thing to be considered. Also, security and safety is one more thing, students. There can be some incidences where students fighting with students. Can that happen, students? Students fighting with students. Can that happen? Ragging. Students, can there be a situation of ragging? Can we think little outside the box, students? Can we think outside the box? Can I write down here? Students ragging. Students ragging, can that happen? Students, just asking. Students ragging, can that happen? Just a practical question. Yes or no? First world or third world, ragging is ragging, no, students? Yes or no? Don't think ragging is only there in third world countries. Every country's ragging is there. Students ragging, causing students ragging, students conflict, students conflict, students conflict can happen. Natural disasters can happen. Students, ragging is a very, very important point, because that is, you have to make sure those things are controlled. You have to make sure those things are controlled. If you don't make sure those things are controlled, it will affect our reputation also. Correct? Yeah. Students ragging. Can I just thinking little practical? Causing suicides. Correct, no, students? Causing suicides. Foreign students, now students, since I'm in the industry, foreign students always suffer depression because of homesick. They will be very difficult to find a partner or a colleague in the initial semesters, because homesick factors are there. So psychological factors are very, very important to be considered. So are you fine with this analysis? I think today it was a wonderful analysis we have done. So I'll just go with the one-to-one discussion. Feroza, any questions for the day? Mr. Kuze, any questions for the day? Mr. Srini, any questions for the day? Ms. Sridevi, any questions for the day? Can I get a Y in the chat box if you are okay with that? Yeah. So on our Saturday class, I'll teach you drafting answers, how to write answers. And we will do a strategy canvas also. And we can start with the syllabus completion also. So thank you very much, students, for your valuable time. So I will meet you on our Saturday class. Thank you very much. 9:30 p.m., the same time for every day. Take care, students.